Hi, these are your energy stories from the first week of March 2022. Let's start with some recently announced massive projects. First, Saudi Arabia just signed contracts for a gigawatt of solar last week as it looks to diversify beyond hydrocarbons. The Saudi Power Procurement Company signed 25-year power purchase agreements for a $450 million 700 megawatt plant and another $213 million 300 megawatt plant in two different regions of the country. Saudi Arabia is looking at installing up to 15 gigawatts of solar over the next 2 years. Next, Australia mining company Fortescue is beginning work on a 2 gigawatt green hydrogen electrolyzer facility in Queensland. The initial elements of a hydrogen manufacturing center in which wind turbines, solar panels, and batteries will eventually be made. For a short period, this $83 million joint venture project with Plug Power will be the largest electrolyzer facility in the world. The plant will use Plug's proton exchange membrane, PEM technology, which costs more but allows for the variable output from renewables in a way that cheaper alkaline electrolyzers don't. Green hydrogen production is ramping up quickly. Germany's ThyssenKrupp and the UK's ITM Power each have plans to grow production capacity for their electrolyzer facilities to 5 gigawatts each no later than 2025, while Norway's Nel trails somewhat but is also looking at expansions up to 2 gigawatts. Sticking with H2, U.S. developer Green Hydrogen International announced its intention to develop an enormous green hydrogen hub in Texas, supported by 60 gigawatts of solar and wind energy, with annual hydrogen production at an estimated 2.5 billion kilograms. To put that 60 gigawatts of renewables in perspective, the Texas grid today is supported by about 86 gigawatts of nameplate generating capacity. So yeah, this would be a huge project. The Hydrogen City project will be developed in phases starting in 2026 with 2 gigawatts of production and 2 vast hydrogen storage caves. Long term, the project could include up to 50 caves with the capability of harboring up to 6 terawatt hours of energy storage. Arcing over to offshore wind, Equinor and BP have announced they will invest between $200 and $250 million to develop a major regional offshore wind hub in South Brooklyn's Marine Terminal just outside New York City. The terminal will facilitate staging and assembly of the massive components needed for offshore wind projects, starting with Equinor's and BP's Empire Wind and Beacon Wind projects totaling 3.3 gigawatts, and eventually potentially supporting Equinor's goal of 12 to 16 gigawatts of East Coast offshore wind by 2030. And just to the northeast in early March, the Massachusetts Legislature passed H. 4515, an act advancing offshore wind and clean energy, which bumps the state's offshore wind targets from 4,000 megawatts to 5,600 megawatts, while also promoting more grid modernization activities and energy storage. This bill now awaits Governor Charlie Baker's signature. Moving over to electric vehicles, Pacific Gas and Electric and GM have announced they will work together this year in developing a pilot project involving multiple electric vehicles as backup generation resources. The project will start in the laboratory and eventually migrate to the actual home environment. The two parties will deploy charging hardware from an undisclosed third party, as well as GM's communications protocols, with the goal of automating flows of electricity from the EV to the home and scaling significantly with home backup as a long-term capability. For PG&E, there's value in figuring this out, as 20% of all EVs sold in the United States reside in its service territory. Staying with EVs, Volkswagen's board has given approval for construction of a new $2 billion EV plant in Germany dedicated to manufacturing its flagship Trinity model, the first to be built on its new SSP electric platform. Activity will commence in the spring of next year, and cars are expected to roll off the line by 2026. And looking at possible tech around the corner, Xcel Energy is considering becoming operator of the 462 megawatt small modular reactor being developed at Idaho National Laboratory in Idaho Falls. This development may considerably boost the fortunes of the 6-module Nuscale Voyager small modular nuclear project. Xcel Energy Nuclear Services Holdings, the utility's nuclear operations division, signed a term sheet agreement with project developer Utah Associated Municipal Power Systems, committed to develop a potential long-term maintenance and operating contract that could be signed as early as this summer. So a lot happened last week. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next week.